The fluorescent lights hummed overhead like a choir of mechanical bees as Clara Benson pushed her cleaning cart down the gleaming marble corridor of Stewart Financial. It was nearly midnight, and the skyscraper, which during the day roared with footsteps and tension, now lay hollow, a steel cathedral of ambition long since gone to sleep. But not for her. Never for her. Clara moved quietly, the way someone learns to after a life of being invisible. At 28, she'd mastered the art of silence. Her hands, wrapped in latex gloves, danced across glass surfaces with the grace of a pianist. The glass conference room doors, the brushed metal handles, the massive mahogany desk of the CEO. All of it was under her jurisdiction, not with authority, but with reverence. She cleaned like she prayed. Not seen but meant. She paused tonight though. Something had been left behind. Pocket watch. Silver, ornate, almost out of place in this modern world. It lay open on the desk, ticking steadily. Clara's breath caught. She reached for it, not to steal, not even to hold, just to return it to its case. But the sound of a door slamming shattered the hush. "What do you think you're doing?" The voice was cold, unyielding. Clara turned slowly. Gabriel Stewart stood in the doorway, sharp in a black coat, eyes like granite. The infamous CEO, known for firing a man for sneezing during a board meeting, was staring at her as if she'd broken into his sanctuary. Clara didn't flinch. Her hand hovered over the watch. "I was just putting it away. I know what it's like to lose something precious." His jaw tensed. "You think this is precious?" She nodded. "Someone gave me a watch once. Then they vanished." Gabriel's eyes flickered. Then, without another word, he turned and walked away, leaving the door wide open. Gabriel Mora didn't believe in accidents. He believed in control, in structure. Every tie knot perfect, every contract airtight. That's how he had built Mora Financial. Brick by cold, merciless brick. He didn't waste thoughts on janitors. They were background noise. But that girl Clara wasn't noise. Her voice echoed in him days later, every time he saw the pocket watch. She hadn't cowered. She hadn't apologized. She had understood. Gabriel hated that. And yet he began to wonder. The next Thursday he took a coffee break, something he hadn't done in 5 years. He found himself in the hallway she cleaned. "You drink tea or coffee?" he asked abruptly, startling her near the vending machine. Clara looked up from wiping the counter. "Tea." He nodded, said nothing, and walked off. The next night, a chamomile tea packet lay folded on the desk where she worked. The dance had begun. Clara noticed the pattern first. How the elevators would ding just as she started the top floor. How the footsteps she once only heard after hours now echoed alongside hers. Gabriel was watching her. He didn't ask personal questions, not at first. Just random ones. "Why do you always hum when you clean? What's that book you keep tucked in your cart?" She answered carefully. "I hum to forget I'm alone." "The book is poetry." "What kind?" he asked one night, leaning against his office door. "The kind that makes you feel something you don't have a name for." Gabriel said nothing. But that night he didn't sleep. Weeks passed. And then one Thursday she didn't come. He noticed the silence first. The hallway felt hollow, the air too still. He walked down to the janitor's closet, something he swore he'd never do, and found it empty. The cart was gone. The air smelled like bleach and lemon, but it wasn't enough. He waited until midnight. Nothing. For a man who had never acknowledged absence as loss, her absence struck like a hammer to the chest. Gabriel Stewart felt something. He just didn't know what to do with it. The next day he called HR. She was sick, they said. Flu, probably. She lives in South Archer. It's rough there. Gabriel didn't hesitate. He sent a car. He sent it back. He offered a desk job. She refused. I don't want your pity, she told him the next night when she returned, pale but defiant. It's not pity, he said almost gently. She stared at him, her eyes like storm glass. Then what is it? He didn't answer. Because he didn't know. That night it rained. The kind of rain that drowns cities. Clara arrived soaked, shivering. He saw her from the security monitor and, without thinking, opened his office. Come in. Dry off. She hesitated, then stepped inside. He handed her a towel. She sat, dripping, eyes on the floor. Silence stretched. And then she saw it. A faint scar on his wrist, half hidden by his cuff. You tried, she asked. His breath caught. Yes. Me too, she said. Their eyes met. No kiss. No embrace. Just the quiet collision of two souls recognizing each other's broken edges. It was more intimate than touch. When she left that night, the office felt colder. But the pocket watch ticked louder. Gabriel turned it over in his hand. For the first time, he wondered if time could be something other than an enemy. Something like grace. Gabriel began to wait for her. Not in an obvious way. Not standing at the door like a lovesick fool. But he would stay later than needed, pretend to study contracts he already knew by heart, hoping to hear her soft humming drift down the corridor like incense in a forgotten chapel. Clara sensed it too. She wasn't naive. She knew when a man's gaze starts to linger just a beat too long, when silence carries questions too sacred to say aloud. They talked more. About trivial things at first. Have you always worked nights? Since I was 13. Day jobs were for the lucky. And books. They were my escape. Still are. Sometimes he just watched her work. Watched the way she treated even a wastebasket with quiet dignity. As if every object had a soul. As if her cleaning was a kind of prayer. One evening he brought her a book. I thought of you, he said awkwardly, placing it beside her cart. Pablo Neruda. Clara ran her fingers over the cover. Her lips parted as if she wanted to say something but didn't. Instead, she tucked it away. That night, when he checked the security footage, something he now did obsessively, he saw her in the janitor's closet, reading the book by flashlight, curled into a corner like a child hiding from the world. Gabriel started talking about his grandfather. He raised me after my parents died. I was 10. He was the only person who ever called me son. Clara listened, didn't interrupt. Her silence was an invitation. He gave me that watch. Told me time was sacred. That every second was a seed. Plant wisely. Clara looked down. My father gave me a plastic watch once. Broke it. I was 7. Thought he'd be mad. I just left. Never came back. Silence again. But this time it hurt less. The company was shifting. People noticed. Gabriel smiled once in a board meeting. Someone claimed they saw him hold an elevator door. Rumors flew. Some blamed a new business strategy. Others thought he was losing his mind. Only Clara knew the truth. He was thawing. One night, near Christmas, Clara brought a small gift, wrapped in brown paper and tied with string. She placed it quietly on his desk. He looked at it like it might explode. You don't have to open it now. Or ever. She turned to go, but his voice stopped her. Stay. She did. He unwrapped it slowly. Inside was a handkerchief, embroidered with a single word. Still. He looked up. Because you are, she said. Still here. Still fighting. Still human. Gabriel didn't speak. But he reached into his pocket and placed the watch in her hands. "Keep it," he whispered. "Just for tonight." Clara held it like a relic. And in that moment, the past and present touched hands. Time didn't stop. Breathe. The first week of the new year brought a cold sharper than usual. Even inside the towering fortress of Mora Financial, the chill seemed to find its way through the marble walls, seeping into bones and silences. Clara kept her coat on as she worked, but not just for warmth. Something else had begun to cool, something between them. Gabriel hadn't spoken to her in 5 days. It wasn't that he ignored her. He nodded in the halls, held the elevator door without a word. But the long, searching glances, the slow, hesitant conversations, they had stopped. Clara noticed. She felt the absence like a phantom limb. He hadn't taken the watch back. It still rested beside her prayer book, wrapped in a silk cloth she had found at a thrift store. She hadn't dared open it since New Year's Eve. Felt too sacred. Like a confession she wasn't ready to reread. Gabriel, on the other hand, had entered full retreat. He told himself it was for the company. Mora Financial was navigating choppy waters. Several international contracts hung in limbo, and there was pressure from the board to automate more departments, lay off more staff. But the truth was simpler. He was afraid. Afraid of how easy it had become to speak to her. Afraid of how her presence softened his days and haunted his nights. Afraid of what it meant when he wanted to see her, even more than he wanted to win. So he did what he'd always done. He built a wall. Clara didn't chase. She had learned long ago that those who run from you while you stand still never truly see you. She kept cleaning, kept reading Neruda, kept humming. And one night he didn't come at all. Then another, and another. By the end of the week, she heard the rumors. He's back to the old Gabriel. Fired 2 interns in one day. Someone said he threw a laptop. She didn't believe all of it, but she knew enough to know. He had shut the door. Her. On whatever it was they were building. It hurt more than she expected. It was during that same week she was blamed for a spill that wasn't hers. Coffee in the executive conference room. A stain on the Persian rug. She tried to explain, but the supervisor cut her off. Gabriel himself saw the mess. "But I wasn't even on that floor." "You're dismissed." Dismissed. Not fired. Dismissed. Like a whisper sent back into the dark. She packed her things in silence. Didn't cry until she was outside. It was raining again. Course it was. Days bled into weeks. Gabriel buried himself in numbers and noise. The silence of Clara's absence grew louder than any boardroom. The office smelled different now. Too sterile. No trace of lemon. No trace of her. He tried not to care. Tried to believe he'd done the right thing. But then he found the gift she had left behind. The handkerchief. Still. He held it like an echo. And he noticed. The watch was gone. He searched his drawers, the safe, the valet box at home. He had given it to her. Trusted her with it. And hadn't asked for it back. That night, he sat alone in his office. The skyline flickered in silence. He poured a glass of scotch and didn't drink it. He wrote a letter. Crumpled it. Tried again. By morning, he had nothing but a blank page and a hollow ache. He avoided the security room, afraid to see the footage of her final night. But curiosity is a cruel master. On a Thursday he finally gave in. There she was, cleaning his desk, reaching into her pocket. She placed the watch on his desk, set it carefully. Beside it, a folded piece of paper. The audio was off, but he could almost hear her whisper something. He raced to his office. Nothing on the desk. He checked the drawers. the bookshelf, the corner behind the plant. Finally, inside the pocket of his winter coat, untouched since January, he found it. The watch. And a note. It's not the watch that stopped. It's you who stopped hearing the time of the heart. Gabriel sat and wept. Not loudly, not dramatically, but the kind of weeping that comes when something precious slips through your fingers, and you realize you never even held it right. 3 days later, he left the tower. First time in years without security. He went to South Archer. No driver. No pretense. Just Gabriel Stewart, man, not CEO. He found the street from her records. Walked past shuttered shops. Dogs barking behind broken gates. Kids playing with sticks. He followed the scent of old books and lemon soap. The sign read, Hope Library. She was inside, shelving children's books. A denim apron over her sweater. Hair tied up. Humming. She looked up. Froze. He stepped closer. Held out the watch. Return it if there's still time. She didn't take it right away. Her hands trembled. I don't know, Gabriel. You shut the door. Again. I was scared. So was I. Silence. Then slowly she took the watch. Opened it. Ticking. Still ticking. She looked at him. And smiled. Not a wide movie-ending smile. But the kind that says, maybe. Maybe hearts remember. Maybe winter blooms. Maybe there's still time. The next morning was quieter than most. A gentle fog clung to the edges of South Archer, softening the cracked sidewalks and faded signs. Birds sang like they had somewhere better to be, and the air smelled faintly of something sacred. Hope, maybe. Or forgiveness. Inside the Hope Library, Clara stood at the counter, the silver pocket watch resting quietly on a folded cloth beside her. It hadn't left her hand all night. Not out of possession but wonder. How could something so cold, metal, time, memory, feel so warm when it beat against her palm? Gabriel hadn't stayed. After giving her the watch, he left with no demands, no explanations, no script. Just a man offering something precious, and waiting to see if it would be returned. She had seen him outside once that morning, walking past the library windows slowly, not entering, just waiting. Let him wait, she thought. Let him learn that love doesn't knock down doors. It waits to be invited in. Gabriel had barely slept. Instead he walked, from her street to the next, through the market, past the barber shop, past the church with chipped paint and a sign that read, God Speaks. He sat on the steps of that church for hours. Once, a boy approached and offered him a mango lollipop. Gabriel smiled for the first time in days. Not a grin, not a corporate smirk, a real smile. Clumsy, human. He took the lollipop. Thanks. Clara watched him from a distance for 2 days. He didn't push. He didn't ask to see her. He just existed near, quiet. At one point, she saw him help an old man carry a bag of rice. Another time, he bought flowers from a girl and gave them to the woman sweeping the library steps. She'd never seen that version of him. Or maybe she had. That night in the office, with the rain and the silence and his scar, that man had always been there, hidden beneath armor. Maybe now he was trying to lay it down. On the third day, she left the library early. He was sitting on the bench across the street. As she approached, she said nothing. Neither did he. She sat beside him. They watched the children play in silence. The distant sound of a guitar drifted from an open window above them. He turned slowly. Why a library? He asked. Clara smiled, eyes on the sky. Because it's the only place where silence tells stories. He chuckled. God, he actually chuckled. And you? He looked down at his hands. Because I forgot how to listen to them. She looked at him now. Really looked. He wasn't wearing the designer coat. No watch on his wrist. Hair a little unruly. A man who didn't look ready for a board meeting, but maybe ready for something else. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small book. "Here," she said. He opened it. Inside, her handwriting. A poem by Czeslaw Milosz. Love means to look at yourself the way one looks at distant things. For you are only one thing among many. He closed the book gently. "Do I get to keep this?" "You'll have to return it if there's still time," she teased. His laugh this time was louder, more free. Over the next weeks, their meetings took on rhythm. Coffee in old cafes. Walks in the community garden. Quiet dinners on a bench near the soccer field. Eating pão de queijo wrapped in napkins. There was no grand confession. No torrid kiss. Just two souls walking slowly toward one another. No rush. No fear. She told him about the boy in the orphanage who taught her to play chess, and how he was adopted and she wasn't. He told her about the night his mother died. How no one at boarding school told him for 3 days. She cried. He didn't. But his hand reached for hers, and she let it. Not because she pitied him, but because broken things recognize each other and somehow create a whole. One evening, she invited him to the library after closing. "I want to show you something," she said. She led him through the stacks to a small locked room. Inside, shelves of donated books, most falling apart. A single lamp lit the corner. "This is where the books come to be healed," she whispered. She picked up a tattered children's story. "The Binding Room," he read from the label. "I restore what can still be read," she said. "Even if the covers are gone. Even if the pages are scarred." He looked at her. "I think I'm a book like that," he said. Clara nodded. "So am I." Then silence. Not heavy this time, but full. He stepped closer. No rush. No breathless tension. Just presence. "I want to be here," he said finally. "Not just today. Not just to visit." She looked up at him. "You mean?" "I mean if there's a way. Place. In this world. In yours. I want to learn to be part of it." Her throat tightened. "Even if I never wear a suit again." She laughed through tears. "Then start with this." She handed him a worn-out novel. "Your First Restoration." He opened it reverently. Inside, in pencil, "Property of Clara Benson." He looked at her, and in that moment something changed. He didn't need to ask if she loved him. She didn't need to ask if he meant to stay. The heart, when it finally learns to hear, doesn't need translation. The library had grown quieter with the end of summer. Children returned to school. The garden out back wilted in patches, and the air hinted at the first sigh of autumn. But something in the quiet wasn't emptiness anymore. It was peace. Clara had grown used to Gabriel's footsteps. Soft now, not the cold click of polished shoes on marble, but the slow rhythm of a man who had nowhere urgent to be. He came in most mornings. Sometimes he fixed broken bindings. Sometimes he read to the elderly who gathered in the reading room. And sometimes he just sat near Clara, head tilted, as if trying to catch something invisible in the air. Love has many dialects. Silence was theirs. On the last Friday of September, Gabriel arrived early. He carried a book under his arm, Clara's old copy of Pride and Prejudice, now fully restored. The spine was reborn, stitched in careful, loving threads. The cover had a new jacket, deep blue like midnight. "I finished it," he said, setting it down. Page by page. Clara touched the cover, smiled. "Does it still feel like mine?" she asked. "No," he said. "Now it feels like ours." She blinked back tears. And then, without fanfare, he took her hand. No hesitation, no trembling. A vow, quiet and whole, wrapped in the small gesture. The next few months became a soft blooming. Gabriel sold part of his company. Not in bitterness, not in despair, in freedom. "I don't want empires anymore," he told her one day. "Just a garden." And they made one. Not just metaphorically. Behind the library, where stray bricks and weeds once grew, they planted wildflowers. Lavender, jasmine, things that didn't need much to thrive. Just a little light, a little space, and someone to believe in them. People came to see, to help. Children planted seeds. Elderly women offered stories for the library shelves. The community grew like roots under soil. Hidden, strong, faithful. Gabriel often stood among them, sleeves rolled up, hands dirty, heart lighter. "Is this real?" he asked her once. She nodded. More real than anything money could buy. One evening, near Christmas, Clara found a small package on her desk. No tag, no ribbon. Inside, the pocket watch. But now, etched on the back, in delicate, curved script, "Time began again the day you stayed." She clutched it to her chest, heart full. He didn't need to say anything. The silence between them had long since learned to speak. Yet life, being what it is, doesn't always give you fair skies forever. In February, Gabriel's health faltered. Nothing catastrophic, but enough. A tremor in his hands. A diagnosis that whispered words like degenerative, progressive. "We don't know how long." He told her under a tree, purple blossoms falling like slow rain. "I'm scared," he admitted. Clara reached for his trembling hand. "You don't have to be brave," she whispered. "Only present." He cried for the first time. Real tears. No shame. And she held him like she'd wanted someone to hold her all her life. The illness didn't steal him suddenly. It came gently, like a thief with soft feet. He began to forget numbers first, then names, then sequences. But not her. Never her. Even on days when he couldn't remember the year, or where he'd put his shoes, he'd still say when she walked in, "There you are." Like her presence was the one fixed star in a spinning sky. He stayed. Every day. Not out of pity. Out of promise. Because love doesn't run when the story changes. It rewrites itself around the pain. Years passed. The library became known across the city as a haven for the forgotten. Children came to learn. Adults came to rest. Elders came to remember. And Gabriel, in his slower, quieter body, still showed up, planting bulbs with unsteady fingers, humming old songs no one recognized. One spring morning, Clara found him asleep in the garden chair, watch in hand, still ticking. She sat beside him, rested her head on his shoulder. They didn't speak. Didn't need to. When Gabriel passed, it was early May. The flowers were just beginning to open again. The air smelled of books and wet soil. And the sky was the kind of blue that makes you believe in eternity. Clara sat with him till the sun touched his feet. She didn't cry right away. Grief, like love, arrives on its own time. But when it came gently. Through music, through memories, through the hands of those who showed up with food and poems and arms wide open. He had changed them all just by choosing to stay. A year later, the garden was renamed the Heart's Library. Children ran between rows of wild lavender. Old men played dominoes beneath the trees. And on a quiet bench near the back, a plaque read, "For the man who learned to listen, and the woman who taught him how." Clara still wore the watch sometimes. Not every day. Only when she needed to remember that even the coldest winters can grow flowers. That love isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a clock ticking in the hand of someone who once forgot how to feel and remembered just in time. Late afternoon. Clara sits in the garden, sunlight painting her face gold. She opens the book he restored, the one that once belonged to her alone. Inside the cover, she's added a new inscription. For all the broken things that chose to bloom. Pocket watch ticks on. Still working. Still warm. And somewhere, beyond pages, beyond time, a soul smiles. Do you believe love still saves broken hearts? The most improbable romance began with silence.